restock my vape.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, there we go. Says we're live.
Woohoo!
Okay, let me set it stuff up. This is exhausting.
I would do this for a living over. I think I would do this for a living over the stuff we do day to day.
Like being a dev advocate.
Oh yeah, that could be fun if you had some creative freedom. You know, like here's our framework. Go make apps with it. No limitations on what you make. But if they were like, go read documentation on YouTube, then I would get bored quickly.
Well,
yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of developer advocates starting Twitch stuff, or like different kind of live streams. I mean, it's part of their job now. And it is kind of cool. I sent you those ones like Apollo, GraphQL, and some other channel. They have just like people streaming nonstop, which is weird.
You know who has some pretty good developer advocate videos is Observable HQ. Yeah, I've been learning a lot from this lady.
Oh, hold on. Let me share your screen. There we go. You love Observable HQ.
I'm kind of a fan. I see a lot of potential in it, and I've dabbled with it a little bit. But they have a YouTube channel now with this Anjana lady, and she's like a pretty rock solid developer advocate for all the features on their app. Anyway, shout out to Observable.
Shout out Observable.
All right. Tell me when you're ready to jump in.
Okay, let me send out some links to the people.
All of the people.
Cool. It's sent. Let's roll.
Yarn serve. All right. While that's booting up, quick update since our last stream. So we've got this donation UI kit, which is an open sourced VueJS library with one component in it right now. And we've published it on NPM, so anyone can NPM install our donate UI kit. And yeah, we're over time going to have a full-blown Vue library tailored to nonprofits. And we've been using Rollup as the config to, where is it? Where's our Rollup?
Where's our Rollup? It's in build.
Build, there it is. Yeah, so we've got Rollup as our config that we worked on, not last time, but the screen sharing before last, to compile our library for reusability in the NPM world. And this is a boilerplate. I forget where we got it from. I think it's straight from the documentation for the NPM library.
No, this one was, didn't we rebuild it from some command line tool?
No, I misspoke. Not NPM library, but rollup library. Yeah, there's a package that gave us that config. Where is it? Yeah, it's like,
I thought it generated this whole app for us.
It did.
But I don't think it's in our package. I think it was like we use it to generate this, and then it doesn't.
So I think this was it. Rollup plugin view. We should probably know this and document it. Vue template compiler? No. I remember it being a rollup NPM module that had a bunch of presets, and it compiled all of the config for us.
Yeah, well, let's forget about that. Let's get into our components that we're going to edit this time.
Okay. I'll document this later. And that's another thing. We need to remember to be writing more documentation. All right.
Oh, it will get there at some points.
So here we have a QA webpage for a fundraiser similar to GoFundMe. And today we're going to be building a reusable minimal style sidebar here, but it won't just be a sidebar. It's going to be a ordered list of donations. So this can be used by a lot of nonprofits because every nonprofit accepts donations online, and most of them wants to show like top donors as kind of a call out. And so we're going to build a reusable list component that takes in an array of donors, and based on the donation amount property, which every object in that array should have, we will order them from most to least. And then if we want to get fancy, maybe we can have some tabs. It doesn't have to say what these tabs say. It can be a prop that we pass in so that if you want to have multiple lists in the component, if we have time, we can get into that. But first and foremost, we're going to make a pretty styled ordered list.
Just the list. So it's not necessarily the tab part of it either?
We'll start with just the list. And then if that goes well and we have time, we'll add the tab feature.
Okay.
So let's see if I think our library is running.
Is your library running?
Better go catch it.
Whoa!
All right, so here's our card component, reusable with a kitten placeholder image. And here's our card component for the NPM library. So let's jump into another. Bear with me here. I'm in a new code editor, not using WebStorm.
Going back and forth all the time.
It's funny how slow and stupid you feel when you switch code editors and all the stuff you have memorized is somewhat different.
That's why it's best to never do anything new and just stick with what works forever.
Yep.
That's how you save time.
All right, we're going to call this donation list. I haven't thought through if there's other applications for this component. I'm trying to keep it pretty minimal, and I'm assuming that we're just going to take in an array of donors.
Do you want to call it donation list though? Do you want to, like, is it specific to donations? Because couldn't they just make it like, I don't know, could you use the list for something else?
Well, yes, but we're trying to keep the library focused on nonprofit related components and not recreate Twitter Bootstrap. So we could have a generic list component that's a knockoff of what Twitter Bootstrap offers. But I think it's kind of special for the framework to have something that's tailored to donors. Because a lot of nonprofits on their websites, like Salvation Army, a lot of nonprofits, or anything like water.org, they're going to show somewhere on their public website donations coming through.
Mm-hmm.
You may have to log in.
I bet it's going to be hard to find it.
Maybe. I know that on GoFundMe, it's everywhere.
But so still, could we use it as something like as a list for something else down the line, like top donation campaigns or something, right? In that case, you're not going to want to make a whole nother list, and you're not going to say, oh, in that case, just use a donation list. It feels too specific for me. And I know you think list is too generic, but the component itself is a list component. What you build out of it is really what the context of what it's called.
If you want to get really abstract, then yeah, we can have a generic list component and then import that into the donation list component as like the base for the styling. So we could have a list component that kind of orders the styling of a list, and it doesn't care what kind of data you pass in. It just has like some fallback styling for when too much data is passed in or whatever. And then the donation list could be what is special about like sorting based on the amount that gets passed in. And that could inherit from the other one for its styling. But my personal workflow preference is to not get too abstract up front and kind of hard code the end result. This is just how I work. So I would rather hard code all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for a ordered list like this, call it a donation list component, and then abstract out a generic list component for possible reuse elsewhere. But there's multiple ways to go about it.
Yeah, we can always abstract it out more later on if we need to. I don't really want to have just a list component and then have them inherit it. That seems kind of over abstracted out of the beginning. I mean, but whatever. Let's leave it alone.
Well, okay. So if we go down this road, I think we can call it donation list or whatever. But what I'm interested in is a filter inside the list that orders the items.
Yeah, so kind of a sortable, you mean?
Yeah, sortable list. Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I think that would be more generic enough.
So, okay, we can call, should we rename it?
But I don't know. I mean, so
sorted list.
from the marketing side, I might call it a donation list, but from the developer side, I would call it a sortable list. So are you trying to write this for a marketer to create their own website with, or for a developer who's getting orders from some marketer?
I haven't thought through that far yet.
I don't even know if that's a valid thing to think about, but.
Ah, fail. I don't have Emmet. Okay, so we're going to need a template. We're going to need some JavaScript for donation.
What does the name here do? Is that just a unique name?
It's more of a developer experience thing. The component works just fine without it.
Maybe that shows up in the dev tools somewhere.
That, and it's just a Vue recommended practice.
Yeah. Because I noticed in our other one we called it donate card, but the actual component is just called card later on. Yeah,
this is something that Vue is maybe a little more a little less strict than React on. Like, you can use name syntax different ways, you know, so like camel case versus dash, and it still reads the components in, even if you're sloppy about it.
So, Trent, chat wants to know, do you like Vue more than React?
Personally, yes, I do. I don't have anything against React. I've worked in it for years, and I still try to keep up with what's happening in React. But for me personally, I like that Vue has a more loyal community that's smaller. So you don't have the feeling of, you know, Facebook controlling the direction of the framework. In Vue, it's developers who use the framework every day who are growing it. And so you feel closer to the people behind the source code of Vue. And that matters when you are like on forums and stuff, because you have like the core contributor of Vue responding to your questions on GitHub issues and Stack Overflow. But then furthermore, day to day, I love how Vue feels like I'm writing HTML. I'm a creature of habit, and I never did really enjoy JSX in React. I just prefer the HTML syntax of Vue. And in my production apps at work, you know, the performance comparison of Vue to React is so close that I would rather have the HTML feeling and maybe take somewhat of a performance hit. I don't know if it's slower, but if it is, I'm okay with it, because I prefer the experience of developing in Vue more.
Yeah, I like JSX more. I think it makes more sense than like the Vue templating, where you're switching between HTML strings and JavaScript being parsed in HTML strings. That's confusing to me.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we've got our donation list component. Do we want to just copy the styles from this for now?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple enough. What do you think about like having themed versions of it. Just having the one component, but you can pass in like param or prop, whatever, that will change the different style of it.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess on that note, let's start off from scratch in a way. We can look at the other code for direction, but we won't copy and paste anything because, yeah, we can do some theming instead. So this is the code from work where I built the original idea for the list. So all of this here uses Vue Bootstrap. It's messy. It needs refactoring.
This is what I mean by 25% of your screen.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Here, let me bring it into...
But you're just going over it, but just for reference.
Okay.
See how it only takes up like 25% of the whole screen? So if I'm watching on a 13-inch laptop...
I know. I'm sorry. I forgot. WebStorm doesn't let me just Command plus the way VS Code does.
I know. I think that was one of the reasons I stayed with VS Code for a while, because I was doing a lot of presentations and teaching, and being able to blow up your thing like that just was really easy.
Okay, so here we are in VS Code, all zoomed in for this component from the production app that I work on at work. We have this HTML or this Vue code for this component right here. And it's pretty ugly. It needs refactoring. It uses Vue Bootstrap, as you can see here, by B tab. So for now, I don't think we need this dependency at all. That was just a quick way, since it was already a dependency in our production app. It was a quick way to, oops.
Uh-oh, busted.
It was a quick way to get the tabs functionality in place. So we won't worry about any of the Bootstrap related code yet, but we do need this donations container section. So, okay. Div class equals donation.
It is nice to not have to write class name in Vue, though.
Yeah.
I don't get why they can't just give us that benefit. Just fix it for us. They put enough code in there to determine that when I write class, to send me an error message to say, you probably meant class name, and they could have interpreted it correctly.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is loop over our list. So v4 item in list. I don't know why. Oh, because we need a key.
It gave you the error right away.
Yeah, so let's get rid of those squiggly lines. We need a key item.id. And let's create our props. So donation list. And then I always go back and forth. I guess ideally we should mandate that they send in an array, right? Is there a case for looping over an object of objects?
Is there a case for it?
So like, I guess, how do we want to expect the data to be passed in? we can say, you know, like,
I think it should just be an array of objects.
okay, so we're gonna expect for the user of the component to pass in an array of objects and then name. I'm just guessing here. I'm kind of spitballing some ideas, and then donation amount, or we can just say amount. And this is what, a number? This is where it gets tricky, man, because then you get into currency formatting. I think that was part of the reason we wanted to do a donation specific list, because eventually we wanted to tackle currency formatting anyway. So we probably don't want to do it tonight, but maybe we can set ourselves up for it.
Definitely
later.
Need to want to get into currency yet. I would say maybe like take in like a raw amount and formatted amount, or like amount and amount formatted, so that they do the processing for us right now. We're not going to do anything for them just yet. And the amount would expect to be the numerical value, and the formatted would be whatever kind of format they want to show it in.
Okay, so the amount could be just a number data type, then amount formatted would be a string.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't want to save a Scratch file. Okay. By the way, do you know off the top of your head, is there syntax in Markdown for formatting code, JSON code?
You can just prepend it, do fence, and then JSON. But that'll work on GitHub.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if it'll work elsewhere, but I think it should be fine.
Okay.
You can do that with many kind of types. You know, it's just a shorthand for like, this is what type of format this is.
Yeah. Okay.
If it is JSON, though, it should have double quotes. That's why it's miscolored. And I mean, it should have full quotes around it, but I don't think you even need to do that. Just go back to what you had. Sorry, I was just nitpicking at the coloring scheme, but
we'll just make it JS because it's a prop anyways.
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Bear with my slowness on the VS Code stuff. I'm going to open up a new editor for our Scratch file. See, this is one thing I like about WebStorm, not to get into the IDE wars, but their treatment of Scratch files is solid. They automatically save Scratch files, but they treat it like it's outside the project. And in WebStorm, you can go back and revisit all your Scratch files in like a locally stored kind of archived folder per project.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat.
I feel like there's got to be a plugin for that VS Code by now, but I mean,
probably.
I've been trying to get my VS Code down to the most bare bones possible. Every time they release a new feature, I swear I turn it off.
Okay. We don't have any methods. We don't have any styles. We just take in a donation list array, and let's run this. So first thing we got to do, since we're working in a library, is update our demo that pulls in the component. So donation list. import card and donation list. We should do a stream sometime on just like migrating from WebStorm to VS Code, because there are some solid WebStorm features that I just can't get away from. But I would be open to someone helping me transition into VS Code.
There, I forgot who. I think it was Sarah Drasner who made a website for VS Code Can Do That, or something like that. She used to be a dev advocate for Microsoft. But yes, VSCodeCanDoThat.com. And it's a ton of little lessons on how to do these different things in VS Code. It's got like, oh man, it's up there, 35 different things now. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like a microblog, very specific microblog. Brought to you by Burke Holland and Sarah Drasner.
All right, so right now we are just updating our demo of the component library to take in some dummy data, or to pass in some dummy data into our newly created prop, or our newly created component donation list. It's hard to type and talk. So we've got a donation list component, takes in an array. And
I would just call it items instead of donation list as the prop. That's kind of weird. It's replicating it.
Fair enough. Okay, let's make sure we export it. So this is where we do all the exports for every component we create as we go. Default as donation list. Item in items. And let's say h3 item dot name. Sorry for the noisiness of the keyboard.
It's okay. It makes you look really cool.
You mean sound really cool?
Yeah, sound really cool.
Item dot amount. Let's do amount formatted. And I'm gonna look up the Vue props declaration. There's so many ways to declare props, and we want to make the items prop required. So I know that they have this required true option.
You got to make it on the object though, right? Items should be an object.
Yeah, but there's more to it than just that. So I want to make sure I get it right. So yes, you are on the right track.
Whew, this laptop is hot.
See, look, you can even declare props as just an array of strings.
So there's like 3 different ways you can do it.
Yeah, I don't like, that's one complaint about Vue. It's like,
it does have a lot of different ways to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But they make
I get it. Like
pretty...
for this way, I realized the other day I was able to use this without thinking or looking anything up. An array of strings for props is really handy for prototyping. If you know in your head, like, oh, I just got to get this component up and I don't care what the prop type is. I just know what they are off the top of my head. Prototyping is a lot easier with this, but you never want to go into production with that. Because you can break a component if you don't declare the type of prop it is and someone sends in the wrong type.
Well, if someone sends in the wrong type, it would be broken in the longer version, but it wouldn't be in the shorter one, right?
Well, yeah, so here we can say type, default value, required, and then even a validator. Okay. So we're going to make this an object of type array. Default we'll just reuse our example from earlier. And then required true. How's the Twitch chat doing?
Oh, they're good. They're asking about CSS stuff. I'm new to CSS, and they're curious about how you would structure your CSS. Like, what would you recommend to structure it for someone who's new to CSS? Because in here we're using the scope styles, but you could also use something like then, or do a global style sheet, do whatever. But in Vue, I think scope styling is kind of like the default, right?
It is. Yeah, out of the box, you can use scoped styling without any other dependencies, and they even give pointers on how to leverage scoped styles within the Vue documentation. But you can easily add dependencies like Sass. So in your component, you can say lang equals Sass, and then write Sass syntax.
But then how do you use, like, do you still use imports from another file? Like, what if you have global variables in Sass or SCSS? How do you access them in there? How do you import it from another file? Is it the same way?
I don't know off the top of my head because I don't really use Sass much.
I haven't used it in the Vue tags like that. You know, when normally you would just have, usually you'd have like a variable Sass file, and then you would import that at the top.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sass was all about modularity when it first became really popular. It was all about like importing all the partials and stuff.
Yeah, breaking it up into those partials, and that's how I still write my CSS.
You can use Pug.
Is Pug
I actually,
HTML templating? Yeah.
yeah, I actually liked Pug when I did some Node, like server-side static web page work. Pug wasn't too bad.
I thought they didn't call it, or is Pug the new name, or is that the old name?
No, Pug's the new name. It used to be called something else. I forget what.
Was it Jade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jade. Okay, now in addition to being able to import styles.css, we can use, so they don't give an example, but they say that you can use import styles.css. I guess it just compiles your partials into the component, if I had to guess. It looks like they support it, but anyway, I'll have to play with that another time. So, all right, we've got our list component down here. Let's just turn off our card component for right now.
Brooks wants to know how you feel about CSS in the same file as the HTML and JavaScript.
I like it. It was a learning curve at first, but in like less than a week, I got used to it as I was learning Vue for the first time. And the reason is that if you're used to thinking in component architecture, then you know that your CSS code relative to a component should never grow too massive, because then you should be refactoring. So having a style tag in the component helps remind me to keep my components lean, and only be writing styles relative to the component I'm working in.
Yeah, that's what Brooks said too. He said he's fallen in love with it after using Vue. Yeah. I always naturally want to go back to having a separate file, but I haven't done a Vue app. So if I did a Vue app, I would definitely embrace it, because those are all, you know, that's how you do it in Vue. I don't know if I'm a big fan of the scopes. I mean, I like to write my styles globally because I manage them. I use like BEM or something to manage it. But it's just a change of mindset, I guess. Brooks says it's also helped keep the folder structure of his project simpler, only having one file per component.
All right. What should we do next? There's a lot to do. We've got our title and the number. Right now we're using the formatted amount and not doing anything fancy here. So a couple to-dos. We need to style each list item, style the container, and then we need to order the items based on amount. And then what else do we need to do? For a bonus, create tabs of lists. Oh, do we want to make them clickable? So I know in our production app, you can click into one. So each of the list items is a link.
I think that could be a prop passed in with it. It could be links to or something, or however. I don't know what the standard naming is in Vue, but you could just do href probably, right? If they pass in an href, then you link it. If not, don't.
Yeah, yeah. So do we want to make it required as the part of the list items, just like have a URL property?
I would say
that's a string.
href to match like a link.
Okay.
And then just leave a comment after it that says like optional until you can write out better documentation.
Okay. All right, so add conditional support for href. All right, since I'm biased towards CSS, I'm going to try to crank that out first. This is what we want. So
I'll be right back. I'm going to turn my AC on.
all right, so we have an amount that's formatted and it looks like money.
I heard you say something, but I missed it. Were you asking me something?
No, I was just talking to the viewers.
The internet.
Talking to Zoe.
Anybody out there? Box pack? What the hell's that?
I think it's yeah, I wonder if it's like an IE fallback. We don't need it. It's
what's it referring to?
Justify content. It's a compiled fallback for justify content.
Interesting.
All right, let's look at what the dimensions are for our sidebar. Compiled, it turns out to be 294 pixels wide by 330 pixels tall, roughly. So let's make our, for now, let's make our container 300 pixels wide by 400 pixels tall, just to give us some structure here.
You don't want those borders being all loosey-goosey. Man, I miss pixels.
Yeah. I thought we had specified the font family. Here it is. What's the font size here? Yeah, 16 pixels. Okay, and then we want to make this not italicized, even though we're using the I tag.
Why are we using the I tag?
I guess we could just make it a P tag.
Oh, I don't really think this HTML is good either. No, I don't think we should be using H3.
Yeah.
So I've been using a lot of, in these tables, I've been using like definition lists lately. It's not necessarily, this one might, I don't know if it would be the best for it, but usually it's like definition term and definition description. In this case, the term is the person and the description is the value, but that feels kind of weird. It's almost tabular data.
Whoa, that's weird. Oh, that makes sense. So list container. Do you have the CSS tricks flexbox memorized?
I've got Flexbox pretty good now. The one thing that always confuses me is and I usually don't look it up. I usually just do it wrong and then know it's the other one. It's like the direction, because column is rows and row is column, or it's like backwards to me for some reason. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I feel they're backwards.
No, columns are up and down, right?
I don't know. I don't remember, but which one is the default? Row is the default. So row is default, but it shows them in columns. And then column is showing them in rows, which is confusing to me. Right?
Dude,
that's the default. That's row.
Don't get me all confused, bro. You're throwing me off, man.
Why would you call that row when it's showing it in columns? It's separating them into columns.
Boom, there's the culprit. So we don't need flex on the container. And then we want to, oh no, what's the align items? There's so many different ones. This is what throws me off. I think it's align items center. There's also align content.
Yeah.
There we go.
So the way I remember that is items. Think of it as an array of items. So you put items should be. Are you putting those styles on the container or on the?
No. I'm just updating the dummy data to have a list of items so that we know how it looks as a list.
Oh, yeah. You repeating each container instead of each item? Or what?
Yeah. There we go. Now we have a list.
There we go. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Let me see your align items again.
Hold on. Before I forget, let's set one of these to 50. We'll leave this one at 100. 120. Okay. Here's my line items. What did you want?
Let me see the align items.
The CSS?
Yeah. Yeah. So align items affects the children. So I don't think it's doing anything there. And the list item.
No, this one is. So look, whenever I do on list item.
Oh, vertically center. I see.
Yeah. See that?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, and it's really confusing that it's backwards, like when you're using row versus direction or something, too.
Dude, you're going to get me confused, and it's not confused in my head the way it is in yours. So.
All right, I'll stop talking about it then.
Stop pointing out how confused you are, because then
you keep living in your naive world where everything works.
You're gonna ruin Flexbox for me for the rest of my career if I keep listening to you.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I like Flexbox.
Okay. Should we? All right. So we have. I forget, isn't it? Squiggly line to strike through.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot. I did a I think I did some fancy CSS before to get that border. Yeah, list container before. All right, we styled the container. Order the items based on amount. Ooh, this will be some fun JavaScript.
JavaScript. Are you going to have an actual sorter where you click a button to toggle it? Or you just automatically sorting it for them?
Starting out, I was just going to automatically sort most to least for now. The assumption was that this component would be used to show like top donors, right? So if we look at like a donor page on GoFundMe, I think the list here is like, or maybe not, maybe this list is in order of time that it came in. But I thought it was like top donation amount.
It looks like it could be time. It says time on it.
Yeah.
What if you click see all? Does it take you to a new page or does it expand?
It opens up a modal.
Modal.
Okay.
All these people are donating this frequently in the past, like
2-3 minutes. This was a, yeah. So, but this was a GoFundMe from the homepage of GoFundMe.
Justice for Jacob Blake.
Yeah.
I wonder if the legit people, if it's organized. Is this just a random person that put that up? Or is it legitimate that the person who would get, who like, you know? How do people know this isn't a scam?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've heard horror stories where people who tried to run scams on GoFundMe were taken to court after the fact.
Yeah.
But and usually they lose, obviously, and GoFundMe tries to refund those scenarios. But I've only heard 1 or 2 stories of that happening. I don't know how they tried to prevent it up front. I would think if it's getting this much popularity, it's being vetted somehow. Anyway, yeah. Let's order our list for now based on donation amount and most to least, and then we can get creative later. So that means that we want a computed property. These are lightweight methods that you can create when you're not needing to do a lot of updates in the component back and forth, like a stateful update. If you're needing more of a stateful update, something that you're going to reuse like every button click, you can have methods. But since we're just needing to compute the values of the array once when the prop comes in, I think it's more efficient performance-wise based on the Vue docs. Maybe it's just a syntax thing, like a developer practice, but I thought that computed properties were more performant. The two approaches, methods versus computed, are exactly the same. However, the difference is that computed properties are cached based on their reactive dependencies. A computed property will only reevaluate when some of its reactive dependencies have changed. This means as long as message, our message property, data property, has not changed, multiple access to reversed messaged computed property will immediately return the previously computed result without having to run the function again. In comparison, a method invocation will always run the function whenever a re-render happens. Okay, so computed properties are cached. That's good to know.
Yeah, so you're thinking of using a computed property for the sorting, or?
Yeah, sorted items.
I feel like you would want a method for that, unless, well, are you saying the computed will update if you change the sort? Or do we not need to change the sort?
We're not changing the sort. Remember, we're just taking in, and then we're going to sort them by amount, most to least for right now, and then get fancy later.
Okay.
So let's return this dot items dot sort. Oh man, the documentation. Oh, here we go. I guess we can do A, B. The documentation bubble in WebStorm is way better.
Does this show you code samples?
Yeah.
Is that why? You're just sorting by the amount, right?
Yeah, but we're going to need a new array for... Actually, no, we can just use this one. So instead of looping over the prop, we're going to loop over sorted items. And do you remember the syntax off the top of your head for returning? Is it A less than B?
Yeah, if it's a number, I think you can just do like A minus B or something like that.
A dot amount.
Yeah, amount. Yeah.
Minus B dot amount.
I wonder if you're going to have to wrap those in like number to convert them to numbers, just in case they didn't give you a number. They gave you a string on accident, but then you would get 9 minus 9. This is where you got to be aware of dealing with their shitty data.
Yeah.
But let's just start with that for now.
Would you just do like number
parentheses
prop name.
Yeah, but then if they pass you something that is not a number, like $100, it'll give you a nan. And then you'll do like nan minus nan, and it'll show up nan values, you know.
Okay. Let's first test this out and see where we're at. And then we can do some, I'll make a to-do.
That'll be a good thing for us to write tests with, too.
Yeah. I was just thinking of that. Write unit tests.
Unit.
I knew it was backwards. It's B.
It's always that's what Brooks said. He said you always do it one way and then try it the other way after getting it backwards. And I said I always do it backwards too. And there we go. We did it backwards.
Okay, so most to least, we're sorting our. Why don't we bring our code editor over?
How many repos do you think have to do write unit tests?
So many.
So many. I think that's like when you get to the point of you got a legit project. If you've got, even if it's only like one component, if it's got unit tests, documentation, I mean, that's kind of really it. I feel like those are the two minimums I think you have to be considered like a valuable open source project. But I wouldn't touch a project that didn't have, I mean, not tests. I don't care much about tests, but at least documentation.
Yeah, documentation for sure.
Because every time I jump into a project that doesn't have documentation, I end up finding a bug. And it wastes an extra hour or something.
I've heard some really good arguments for unit tests or taking them more seriously. A lot of front-end devs nowadays, I feel like I see a lot of devs who just kind of let JavaScript code go into production without unit tests, and they don't take it as serious. Not all. Some teams are very serious about unit tests, but most of the front-end projects I've been on, it's as if JavaScript is just sloppy by nature, and all the bugs that come with no unit tests are just expected.
Would you say naughty by nature?
Sloppy by nature. Yeah.
Nasty by nature. Sloppy.
Yeah, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're saying, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, someone I was reading on the other day, they said unit tests are, or any code that is legacy code needing to be refactored is code without unit tests. So if there's no test coverage for a chunk of code in your code base, then it's legacy code that needs refactoring. If there is tests for a chunk of code in your code base, then it's up to date.
There's some people that take testing too far, though. I mean, there is, like Brooks mentioned in chat, that he doesn't often unit test the front end, does a lot more integration tests instead, because these components don't necessarily have like units. You know, it could be more of an integration test. I guess the unit we're testing is like, does the prop come out sorted correctly? You could write it as an integration test, or you could write it as a unit test in this case.
How should we handle the on click? So we need to support hrefs. Do we want to just create another div and do like a at click? I'm trying to remember. I think in Vue it's on click equals. Handle item click.
But if it is a link, you would want it to be an actual link element. So instead of a div, you'd want to use like an A.
Okay, fine. I just hate all the side effects of A tags, even though I know they're the right thing to use. They have their own styling.
Well,
They have target equals blank or not. Like, do you want to open them in a new tab or not?
Yeah.
See, boom. A tags broke our styling.
Because it's another nested. That's probably a symptom of your bad styling. No, it's because you added another layer. I think the main div should be an A instead, not, yeah. You need to change the closing div to an A.
WebStorm would have done that already for me. Handle item click. So now we need a method. Handle item click. Ooh. We have a couple ways we can go about this. So we can either just pass in a dynamic href and say something like href equals item dot href. So then we don't need an on-click handler. Or we could do, I don't know if this is necessary, but we could do like a router.push href that gets passed in.
In Vue, you don't have a special link component, right? You just use A links, and then the router handles it fine, or?
Well, there's Vue router, which is a dependency.
But you don't pull in your own link component to create links within the router, right?
Yes, you do. There's actually a component called router-link, and it takes in a to object with the params. I believe it's just like a minimal wrapper around HTML5 push state, but there is a dependency for it if we want to support that.
So you usually do your links like that. Like right now, how we set it up, is it going to do a router push automatically, or is it going to force it?
No, right now it's going to compile into, so this way, if we do a dynamic href, it's just going to compile into a a normal A tag, I believe.
And when you click that, is it going to do a full page reload, or is it going to do a push state?
Let's test it out. Inspect element. So undefined. Oh, we don't have the href property on our example.
Yeah.
Name, amount.
And so I think you might want to make it a div if there is an href, or the other way. If there is an href, make it an A-link. If there isn't, just make it a div.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about earlier when I was trying to make a div with an on-click.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world if we had an empty A tag with all the right styling when they don't pass in href.
Yeah, but you don't want to put an href undefined on it. I mean, also an A tag is generally focusable. If it doesn't have an href on it, then it's not focusable by screen readers, which is totally fine because we don't want it to be in that case. So that's I'm wondering if it's okay to just leave it as an A tag, but then you want to leave that href prop off altogether if it is not defined. How do you do that?
Oh, that's a good question. So this value here that gets passed in can be undefined, but you're still going to have the href property that renders with the component. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so if it's undefined, look, it goes away. Huh.
It's because I wonder if it's because you're doing it in a template literal screen. Delete the template literal and just point to the thing directly, see if it fixes it.
No, look, I just swapped it out for undefined.
I know, but it doesn't link it, right? Or it doesn't show the href.
Correct.
But when you put it back in there now, if you're missing a link, an href on one, it was writing the href as undefined, right?
Oh, so we could just do item.href here.
Yeah, and I think that should make it so if it doesn't exist on an item, it doesn't link it.
We'll pass in one of our data
Yeah.
objects without it. Yeah, okay, it works. So
yeah, that feels like a good solution then.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that too. Chat, how do you feel about that? Let's see what they say when they respond. 20-second delay, probably. But yeah, you want to do some styling so it's not messed up like that. It's not underlined, or
Yeah, list item.
yeah, because otherwise you got to duplicate the code inside of the div or the A tag, and that's kind of annoying. Normally I would make like another method on my React class that would render just that chunk of it. How would you do that in Vue?
Your React class that would render just that chunk.
Like just the content inside of the link or inside of the div, if you just wanted to render that, so you don't have to write it twice, how would you?
I'm not following along. I know there's a v-if option. Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
Oh, that could be a solution. No, because then it would still have both. I mean, if we were going to go the route of replacing it with an A or a div, depending on the href.
Oh, okay, okay. So
And you had to have the contents of either of them would be the same, right? But we'd have to duplicate that code. So how would you avoid duplicating that code? In here, normally in React, I would make a method that would return just those, just that part of the template separately.
yeah. So React would do like it's weird writing React code in Vue, but I think what I'm understanding you saying is that you would have like a render link item, and then you would have a like render no link item.
Yeah.
And you would, in each one of these, you would just say like you would map over. So items.map, I'm pseudocoding now, but items.map, and then if
can you return HTML from there though?
so like if item.href if item.href then return a tag, right? Like HTML. So
can you return HTML from there like that? I don't think you can. I don't feel like you can.
No, you can't. Not in Vue.
So Brooke says you can create another template tag and then use a slot instead.
Yeah, so that would be the best option for what you're doing here in React world. The vslot option would probably be how I would do it as well.
I've only done slots like where you pass them in, but yeah, can we do an example?
Yeah. I've always thought it was a weird name.
It's kind of traditional. Some like older PHP templating libraries, I think, used to call them slots, or different templating libraries back in the day would use the term slot instead of whatever you would call it now these days. Like React calls it children. It's the first time I've seen it called that.
I was actually thinking, so this would work. I was actually thinking of maybe looking into functional Vue component. Do you remember when we looked at Bootstrap Vue? All of their syntax was weird because it like didn't use a template code. Yeah, so this kind of syntax here was where my head was going when you asked if we could do the React equivalent to conditional HTML tags. In Vue, you can use these render functions and have like your HTML created programmatically. This also uses slots, I believe. It's not only verbose, but we're duplicating slot for every. Yeah, so you can use slots in here too. So you're either way, slots are the way to go. But instead of having a slot in your template code, I was wondering if we could try something with like a conditional element that gets generated. So under your render function, you could have like if href is defined, return a tag.
Yeah, but that just feels like so unnecessarily complex, doesn't it?
Well, yes, because we already have the opposing way of writing a component written out. We don't want to rewrite the component into a functional rendered component. You would have to rewrite it, and we don't want to do that. But if you were technically trying to make like a Bootstrap level library, I think this is the way to go for scalability, but I don't know. Let's try a slot in template code.
So I'm going to look at the docs while you do that. The docs are kind of confusing, I think, but
what I'm thinking we would do is create a new component with list item.view. I'm reluctant to go down this road just because we have it working with the A tags, but
no, we don't have to. Yeah, if you're gonna do, I mean, this is just for the slot demo, you're saying, or is it something you really want to do? Yeah. No, I was just curious.
For the slot demo, basically what you would do, I'll just pseudocode it, but basically in your, so I copied over my syntax, but you could have named slots. Yeah, that's what we would want. So in your child component, you could have list item. And a href could be a named slot. So slot, oh man. But then you could also have a div with its own slot. And you would name these like linked item.
Yeah, they'd be the same names, and then you would just v-if each of the elements, right?
Yep. Basically, yeah, in our parent component.
Well, those slots would be the same because the content would be the same in both of them. It's just the outer. Wouldn't you use the same slot name so that the content would be replaced?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, if your parent container were to say like so like template. Oh man, I gotta get Emmett for Vue.
Yeah, I feel like mine broke in JSX too, And I don't know how, but it's such a pain. It saves so much time.
Yeah. So you could do, yeah, a conditional like v-if equals href if item.href. Then you could load one template or another template. Slots are kind of confusing to me, to be honest. I've only used them a handful of times in production. I feel like I need to learn more about them, but
I do think they add a lot of powerful templating type features.
they do.
But yeah, I looked them up. I mean, I studied them once, but I feel like they've changed since then. I don't know if that's true, but
And they have placeholder content that is like fallback,
yeah,
content, which is nice. You don't have to pass in a bunch of placeholder props. You can just override that, or it'll show up as a fallback if nothing is passed in. Yeah, you can do a lot with slots if you're doing some templating. But
let's close
anyway.
it out and go back to what we had. It was working. It felt clean.
Yeah, so the href doesn't render if this is undefined, if item.href is undefined. So that works as is.
So we were just updating the styling, right? Is that where we left off?
Add conditional support for href, done. The next item on our to-do list, avoid non-numbers in the item.amount value, write unit tests. All right, and then bonus, create tabs. Let's skip the tabs stuff tonight and instead
Yeah, we don't need that.
try to finish these other two and then push up to NPM.
Okay.
Okay, so here we are in our working component, and we've got a preview. And next step, we want to filter depending on if it's a if it's a number or not. We want to make sure to bulletproof our props. When you mentioned it earlier, there was something I wanted to look into. So VueJS.
You need to comment out that default items too, so that we don't render some fake data, right? If they don't pass anything.
Yeah. I guess you're right.
I would just leave the array, but then just comment out that first object.
Really?
It'll default to an array, because without an array, would it break? Or I don't know if it would throw an error. React would.
Let's, I don't know either. Let's look at the API for props. There is a validator function, which I've been trying to use more lately. Custom validator function that takes the prop value as the sole argument in a non-production environment. A console warning will be thrown if this function returns a falsy value. So I guess you could say something like value.price. I don't know if this is good enough for us. Maybe we want to do something more. Maybe a validator
That would catch it in development mode, but like I said, it won't do anything in production. But
fair enough.
That could be, I mean, the The only thing I want to do is make sure we don't show a non-value in production.
Yeah. So do we want to say something inside of our sort, like if b dot amount is not a number? Like, how would you go about doing the check to see? I guess we're only wanting a number, so we want to rule out undefined, non, and strings, right? Or do we want to parse strings?
I think we really just want to know if we try to convert it to a number and it's a non. How can we handle that? I would say well, actually, this is just the sorting. This is not displaying anything because we're displaying the formatted value. So whatever they pass for that, we're just going to display it, spit it out. Doesn't matter. But the sorting will get messed up if it's a non-value.
True, true.
So maybe we just, I wonder if we just don't need to check it or if we silently warn them that there is a non-value.
That's what the validator does.
Yeah. But it only does it in dev.
Right.
So the only thing that would happen is if they pass an invalid value, it just wouldn't sort correctly.
I think so. I haven't battle tested this yet, but if we go back to our, what's the keyboard shortcut for files?
Command P.
Aha.
Oh, Command B to show the sidebar?
No, I wanted Command P.
Okay.
So if we go back to our server and we pass in a string, let's just see what happens. I think it just works. That's one of the beauties of JavaScript, right? It parses the string.
Well,
in the sort.
It's going to sort it. Yeah, it's not going to throw an error. I think it's going to sort it, but it won't be in order, right? Did you change? 50 would be fine. Do amount like $50.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so if they pass in,
because
yeah, then it's going to be all messed up.
50, it might still course it, okay? Yeah, it's just out of order there. See how the 50 goes first?
50.
Because it's a probably a non-value. And then I guess that gets sorted first. So I don't know. I mean, do you want to leave it and just call it like a user error? It's really their fault. It's not our fault. For now. Depends how friendly you want to be.
Well, let's look at what other frameworks do. So Vue, Bootstrap.
But do they have a sorting like that?
I don't know. I was just wondering, like, they've got to have some component that takes in data similar to ours, right?
None that do like dynamic sorting like we do, I don't think. Unless the table can, because this is just styling, right? It's not functional. I guess like tooltip and stuff, but would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going really far down one track that isn't that important.
I say we drop it. It could be some pre-optimization.
Yeah, we definitely want to bulletproof our code for all possible data that can be passed in at some point. If we were in production with the framework, then yeah, we'd want to have some fallbacks or whatever.
Do you know what the happy path is?
No.
Not the developer version. So in developer speak, the happy path is like when everything works as expected, like you get the correct input, it should do this. And usually when I'm developing stuff, you develop for the happy path first. So assuming that we got all values and you formatted everything correctly and you didn't screw anything up, then we're going to guarantee that we'll get it on the page fine. And then from there, you go back and fix the edge cases later on. So I say we kind of take that approach where we're just coding for the happy path right now, assuming that you pass things in as we expected. And then later on, we can go back and kind of fix these gaps as needed.
Yeah, that's a normal workflow to me, but I didn't know it was called happy path.
I've first heard it from like a Scrum Master or project manager or something. They use that term. I'd never really heard a developer use it before that, but there was this one that I worked with that particularly used it a lot, and I really like it. I like the name for it, so
happy path.
I kept using it. It sounds so nice, right? The happy path. Yeah. Have you been writing tests in Vue too?
No, I haven't. I'm embarrassed to admit. So
well, that's what I think. A lot of this stuff you just don't test, and you would have like integration tests, where our integration test would say, "Can I see all the donations on the page? Are they in the correct order?"
But okay, for good practice though, do we call it a like donation list .spec.js?
I would follow whatever the VueJS doc says. They probably have a specific way that they set things up, and just follow that. But traditionally, yeah, you have like a .spec, but they might have some built-in testing helpers in Vue to make this easier for you. Like creating an instance. I didn't see it, but go down below where they had sample code where they were testing the component.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Do they create a new file for it?
This one looks like a new file, yeah. That import with the tests and stuff.
Yeah, it's a JS file.
Yeah, just a plain JS file, and then you use the Vue test utils, which allows you to render it. This is the actual VueJS docs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but this JS file is.
Yeah, I think.
Is it like .spec.js? Does it matter?
Yeah, it's weird they don't mention it.
Some test runners care about this.
Well, it's probably. Yeah, I wonder. Did they mention at all what test engine they're using? Is that built into the Vue CLI? I would imagine it's built in.
It's not even Vue CLI. I think this is Vue core that we're looking at.
But you still need something to run the tests, and it's not even telling you what is using it to run. What's running it? Try base example in there on that menu.
That's, yeah, where we were.
Oh, that's just the top of the page.
Okay, well, let's just give it a whirl. I'm sure it's maybe include it into our CLI, like you said. But
yeah.
Let's try it out. Import shallow mount. At Vue/test utils. Donation list. Slash.
Some loud keyboards action.
Sorry, I'll get dampeners for my mechanical keys.
No, it's just really loud when you're not talking because it's trying to pick up that audio. And then when you start talking, it's fine.
So
or
test.
if I'm talking too.
Whoa, easy there, VS Code. Test donation list. So we need a wrapper.
I hate it when you write it all from scratch.
That's how I learn.
No, you don't, because
you bust my chops for copying and pasting everything from Stack Overflow because I need to learn stuff. Now you bust my chops for typing things out because it takes too much time. It helps me ingrain into my memory some of the vocabulary. When I'm not writing tests every day, this is how I learn. But I'll copy and paste the rest just so that you'll quit complaining.
you do you.
So we want to set the data. Wrapper.setData. Would this be like our dummy prop?
Yeah, I think so. Which we called items. Look at us using our own docs. Oh, you just say props, but you don't tell it that it's items.
Oh, look, they've got this repeat 7. I like that. So we can just, can we tack this on to items? So like, oh no, because items is an array. So
You pass an object of items to the set data. No, you were right before.
I was just gonna say item and then dot repeat.
You can't dot repeat an object like that. I don't think. They were doing a dot repeat like a string.
Oh, okay. Yeah, oh, they were doing it on one of the items in the object. Okay. So how does this dot repeat work? Can I use it with my array so that I don't have to?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm just going to pass in items.
You don't want the same items anyway, though. You want different items. Because we're going to end up testing the sort and stuff. Yeah, I'd copy those.
Okay, wrapper.setData items. Assert that the error is true. Oh, okay. So they're asserting that it renders. So we can do that with expect wrapper.find. What are we looking for? Our donation list? Our container component?
What are you testing right now? That it just renders on the page, or what?
Yeah, so they have an assert. Oh, this is interesting. Were we copying from the what not to do?
We were looking at the basic example, I think.
Okay. Because, yeah, they've got a more sophisticated example here. Describe foo, it renders a message and responds correctly to user input. What all do we want to do in our unit test?
So,
because I don't want, go ahead.
We want to test if there is an href, it uses a link, or it's a linkable thing. I mean, really, we just want to know for sure that it's sorting correctly. That's the bare minimum test we want right now. But there's a few things we could test as well.
So test if list renders basic HTML check, and then test if items. What did you say? If it has the href?
I think it's stupid to test if it renders. But we just want to know, is it in the sort? Is it in the right sort order?
Okay.
And if
So
we're
then
unit testing, we would ideally want to test each of the things in isolation. You don't want to test like 3 things in the one test, because then it won't know what it fails on.
well, what 3 things were you referring to?
So the one is the sort order, one is the href. If it includes it, is it an actionable link? If it does not include it, make sure it doesn't link. And then passing in maybe some bad data or something. There was a third thing. What was it? I don't remember. I think there's some more work you're going to need to do to get the test actual to run too. I saw some additional documentation for the test utils.
Okay, let's not get sidetracked though. I want to write it first and then we can go back to running it.
Okay.
All right, so expect, well, we need to set some data. So wrapper dot set data items, and then expect.
I don't think this. I think the set data should be an object with the property of items.
So I don't follow you.
On line 24, when you call set data, pass that as an object. With items in it, because items will be our prop name.
Okay, got it. And then
I think we should find all of the items, list item, and then make sure that they contain each of the amounts that we expect. I don't know if their find only returns the first one it finds, or if we can do like a find and loop over them.
okay, I'm in new territory here. Testing VueJS. Oh, they want me to buy a book.
Sucker. What are you looking for?
This, the test utils docs.
Yeah.
So dot find.
It'd be on wrapper, I think.
Of the first DOM node or view component matching the selector.
Yeah, so we want find all.
Okay, const bar equals wrapper dot find all.
And then I wonder if we can loop over those.
What do we want to call it? HTML list?
List items. That's good.
Const list items equals wrapper dot find all. And you can find all by class name, right? So find all dot list item. What's this at? Is it like the starting point at 0?
At is getting a specific one of the results, like the one at index 0.
Oh, okay. So we don't need that.
So it returns a wrapper array. So let's look at the wrapper array docs and see what methods that has. If that's got like a map.
A wrapper array is an object that contains an array of wrappers.
Yeah, and then look at those methods on the left. Keep going down. No, the methods on the left.
I clicked on methods.
Yeah, I'm trying to see that list. Oh, there's trigger. They don't have a regular thing to just kind of go over it. That's weird. They give you, they say at, so you can get like a specific. I wonder if you can just iterate over it naturally. If you could just do a normal map on it.
There's got to be a recommended pattern for looping over the v4 in a unit test. I don't know if we're going to finish this tonight. I'm fading. Do you want to wrap it up soon?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
We can kick it off next time with
finishing up our unit test.
Writing tests for it.
Cool.
Because I definitely think there's going to be some more setup we have to do to get the test running and stuff too. It's definitely a rabbit hole. So I was surprised you wanted to start it earlier. But I admire your ambition, sir.
Yeah. All right. Well,
well, that's good for this time. Next time we'll kick it off with the testing stuff. Brooke Zerker, Chantilly Cake, thank you for tuning in. Andrew, if you're still there, thanks for tuning in, buddy. That's all we got. We'll see you next time.
Right on. Talk to y'all later.
All right. Love you. Bye.